Hey. Welcome to the City Council meeting of Half Moon Bay for Thursday, April 15th. We will start off with a roll call.
Councilmember Johnson?
Here.
Councilmember Nagengast?
Here.
Councilmember Penrose?
Here.
Vice Mayor Reddick?
Here.
Mayor Brownstone?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay. I'll move that we approve of the agenda. Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against? Agenda approved. And I forgot the Pledge of Allegiance. So please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Thank you. We're going to begin with proclamations and presentations, and we're going to begin this evening with a presentation from the RNA Foundation Ocean Safety on ocean safety. We all ready? Yeah. Whoops, welcome and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Dear council members, thanks for inviting us to talk about Arunay Foundation here today. My name is Tarun Pruthi. I'm a director with the Arunay Foundation and I'm the father of Arunay. Next slide. So on January 19th, an unfortunate incident happened at Cowell Ranch Beach where a father and his 8-year-old son lost their lives. Next slide. Arunay Foundation was formed after a very similar incident about 4 years back, and incidentally, on about the same date, January 18th, around the similar time, and at the same beach, Cowell Ranch Beach. Next slide. It's been 4 years since then, and these things keep on happening. And our goal at Arunay Foundation is to try to change that and to fix that. Drowning is a leading cause of accidental death, and over 40% of drowning deaths occur in natural water settings. California, Northern California, is especially a dangerous coastline. And for every fatal drowning, there are 3 non-fatal drowning events, especially during the months of June, July, and August. Next slide. With that in mind, we started Arunay Foundation with a 3-pronged goal of equip, educate, and inform. And I'll go over some of what we've achieved in the last 3 to 4 years. Closer, okay. And I'll talk about what we've achieved in the last 3 to 4 years since Arunay Foundation was formed. Next slide. First one's equip. This one's an easy one. I mean, these drownings happen and a lot of them are not too difficult to prevent. Equip is one of the easiest defenses that we can have on the beaches. Since our foundation was formed, we've installed in collaboration with SEWA about 25 rings along the Northern California coastline and city of South San Francisco. And we are ready to install many, many more. We're looking for opportunities to install many more. Next slide. And Well, this is a bunch of pictures of the rings that are already installed, and a majority of the 25 are actually in the city of Pacifica. Next slide. We've already seen these rings being deployed, and they've already saved a few lives. So I want to say that at Arune Foundation, we are ready and willing to deploy as many ring stations as we need to in any of the cities along the coastline. We just need to know, so just tell us and we'll do the needful. In fact, we are also preparing a proposal with an independent consultant that we have to propose locations for up to 10 rings along the beaches owned by Half Moon Bay City already. So would love to come back at a point sometime in the near future and share that proposal itself. Next slide. Educate is the other stream that we have been actively pursuing. What we do here is we go to schools and give presentations in schools to kids as young as elementary school and talk to them about ocean safety and beach safety. Beaches tend to be associated with fun, but we want to send the message that you have to be safe and have fun. And to date, we've done presentations in Boy Scout dens and schools in and around Fremont, where we live. We would love to come by to Half Moon Bay City and cities nearby and give similar presentations and educate the kids here. Next slide. As part of Inform, one thing we have been doing regularly for the last 3 years is annual walkathons. We've done this 3 times now in 22, 23, and 24, all in Quarry Lakes and Fremont, with a good attendance of about 400 attendees on each of those walkathons. Next slide. And actually, I want to also announce here for the 2025 walkathon, we're actually working with the San Mateo County Harbor District, which was gracious enough to actually propose this. We're going to host a walkathon here in the Half Moon Bay area. And the proposed date right now is September 27th of this year. So we'd love for all of you to join. And in fact, Harbor District is also hosting an Ocean Safety Day on May 17th. We'll be there also. Would love to meet anyone from Half Moon Bay City at that time. Next slide. So call to action. What we would love to do is to work together to advocate for laws in California to mandate water safety equipment if possible. We'd love to build stronger relationships with Coastal Commission to make permitting easier. And we are not very educated in the city government, so we would love to get help from anyone here, for example, to understand the city government and how to reach the right decision makers to install more and more of these ring stations. Next slide. Here's our team, and next slide. And next slide. With that, I would like to thank you for this opportunity to talk here, and please reach out to us if you have plans for installing rings. As I said, we would love to install many, many more of these rings in the Half Moon Bay City. Colville Ranch is where the incident happened for us with Arune, and it's happened again in this year. I know that's a state beach, but regardless, we would love to start with the city beaches and expand to state beaches as soon as we can. Right? Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to start saying terribly sorry for you and your family's loss. And thank you for setting up this foundation to help prevent similar tragedies for other families in the future. And it's a great service you're doing, and we support you 100%. So thank you.
Thank you.
I would echo what the mayor said. I'm very sorry for your loss. Thank you for what you're doing, despite that. And because of that, I guess. I cannot think of a reason why anybody in Half Moon Bay would object to the installation of rings. I just can't imagine it, so when you and your experts get your, whatever it is, study you're doing, please bring it back and show it to our city so we can move forward with it as quickly as possible.
Love to, right?
Thank you.
I'm definitely in support of this, and I appreciate what you're doing, and I'm very sorry for your loss. But if there's anything that we can do, if the city manager could help out in the Coastal Commission process permitting, which is a difficult one to navigate, I think we could probably help out, and I think we should, because that would help the community in general with getting these rings installed, because that process can be difficult. So
Yeah, once we have a more defined proposal, would love to come back and share and go from there. I know we really appreciated how the Half Moon Bay community came together when this happened with us. So we're happy to install these rings in Half Moon Bay City itself. Yeah. Thank you.
So the mayor is actually hosting a coffee at Half Moon Bay Coffee Company tomorrow morning from 8 to 9:30 with our Assembly member, Mark Berman.
Okay.
So I think we should bring that up to our Assembly member tomorrow. And of course, anybody, member of the public is willing to join these coffees. And Senator Becker and Assembly member Berman, and I think Congressman Liccardo too, they have regular office hours here on the coast. So it's a good opportunity for you and your foundation to connect with them as well. And it's budget time in Sacramento, so it's a good time.
Yeah, would love to join if you have the information. Thank you.
Yeah, Half Moon Bay Coffee Company tomorrow. That's the coffee shop near the Main Street Bridge.
Okay,
And that's 8 to 9:30 tomorrow.
sounds good. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks again for coming tonight. Our next, well, you've heard about the breakfast tomorrow morning, which I would have announced, so thank you. Hope to see some of you there at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. Mark promises to provide coffee and maybe a donut or two, so that'll be nice. Let's see, next is report out from recent closed session meeting.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. The council did meet in closed session earlier this evening to talk about two matters of existing litigation. The first item was the case of Vidovich versus City of Half Moon Bay. And the other item of pending litigation is the City of Half Moon Bay versus Granada CSD and Montera WSD. There is nothing to report out of either item. Thank you.
Thank you. City managers' updates to council. Do we have some?
Mr. Mayor, we don't have any updates for you tonight.
Okay, thank you. Well, then we'll move on to public forum. For those of you who may not have attended public forum before, public forum is where anybody, either here in person or online, can bring up any item they wish to speak about, any item that is not agendized tonight. So if the item is on the agenda, then you'll have an opportunity to comment when we discuss that agenda item. But public forum is only for items that aren't on the agenda. Each person will get 3 minutes to speak. Everything will be translated for those who speak Spanish. And there'll be a timer up front. You'll hear 2 tones. The first tone is after 2.5 minutes, and that means you have 30 seconds left. And the second tone, we ask that you end. Okay, so our first speaker, I don't think we have anybody online, right now? Okay. Our first speaker is Crystalline Geet from the Chamber of Commerce, and she would like to make an announcement.
Thank you very much. Crystal Lynn with the Coastside Chamber on behalf of the Opportunity Center of the Coastside. Just want everybody to have a save the date on May 3rd, which is a Saturday. The Opportunity Center is going to be hosting a community resource fair. So the Renaissance team is going to be having a couple of their startup businesses and entrepreneurs with booths selling their food and some of their goods. And Job Train is going to have some local employers there to connect with job seekers. And together they are going to also have some of our local nonprofit resources like CoSide Hope there for anybody looking for information. It's going to be in our back parking lot. I'm sure there'll be lots of things out front to let everybody know where we are. 637 Main Street, across the street from Bank of America. We hope to see you on Saturday, May 3rd, 11 to 3. Thank you.
Oops. Thank you, Chrislyn. Our next speaker is Joaquin Jimenez.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, city staff, members of the public. It's been an emotional last 2 days, yesterday and today. I want to start by saying thank you. Thank you, Mayor Robert, Debbie, Deborah, Harvey, and myself included, for the work that we did. To make possible the farm worker housing on Stone Pine. City manager, Matthew, you changed the game. When you came to the position of city manager, you made it possible to have housing on that site. I had several conversations with Bob, where he disagreed about having housing on the site because the city did not buy the property to do housing. Conversations with Joe Ickes, thank you. So it's been a lot of work, a lot of heartbreak, a lot of pushback. Yesterday, it was an emotional day for me, for the community of Half Moon Bay. Things that people did not believe that could actually happen. And they did. It's happening. The houses that came in yesterday, the houses that came in today, is only the beginning. We know that it's possible. We know that in collaboration as a team, we can make things possible. You have no idea how many blessings you all receive. We all receive from my videos that I posted on social media. Because everybody knows, who did the work. Everybody knows that. I know for years we have talked about housing, but we made it possible. The city of Half Moon Bay made it possible. It could not have not been for the people up front. Like I say, Matthew, thank you. County of San Mateo, same thing. The various groups that supported this idea. Actually took a picture October 2020 from the top of the hill when I was still running for city council. That was my priority to do, to build farm worker housing, low-income housing. When I'm looking at the site, that's the site for housing. 2020, 2025, now it's happening. Once again, thank you and blessings.
Thank you, Joaquin. Our next speaker, sorry if I'm not reading the handwriting correctly, Lourdes Paluno. If you don't mind saying your name, so I'll pronounce it correctly.
Muy buenas tardes a todos.
Good afternoon to all.
Mi nombre es Lourdes Patiño.
My name is Lourdes Patiño.
Thank you.
Y vine aquí a dar las gracias, muchas gracias por todo lo que están haciendo por esta comunidad.
And
por
I'm here
todo-
to give thanks. Thank you very much for everything that you're doing in the community,
por todos los campesinos.
for all the field workers.
Y es todo lo que puedo decir. Muchas gracias y que Dios me los bendiga.
And that's all I can really say. Just thank you very much, and may God bless you all.
Y estoy muy contenta. Sí
I'm
se
very
puede.
happy.
Gracias.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for coming this evening. Our next speaker is Alondra Rodriguez.
Hello. Good evening. My name is Alondra Rodriguez, and I'm here tonight with my parents. I'm here today to remind you all and ask once again for low-income housing. Both my parents worked in Half Moon Bay all their lives. You probably ate something my dad harvested at some point or gifted someone special an orchid my mom handpicked. My parents are now 62 and 74 and can no longer work due to their bodies just wearing out after so many years of hard labor. I am their sole caregiver and they rely on me financially. We've never had a place to truly call home, nonetheless ours. We've always shared a room. Right now, we're homeless. There's no rooms available for rent, and the ones available go from $1,900 to $2,000 a month, and that's not including utilities, and that's including sharing home kitchens and bathrooms. Although we're eternally grateful for my aunt who's allowing us to crash in her living room, it's just hard and frustrating to be in this situation, and I hope none of you present here today have to be put in our shoes where we don't know if we're either spending the night indoors or in our car, not knowing where to live. I ask you guys to please think about the people who are struggling with housing. I know it's not something that can be done de la noche a la mañana or from one day to another, but let's just have that brainstorming of how we can help the low-income families here. Let's not forget about our seniors who have given their all for this small town. The Stone Pine Project shouldn't be the first and only housing for low income. It should be the first of many. Although we're not guaranteed a home, we're already so grateful to see the houses coming in, and we're happy for those who will be guaranteed a home. And just thank you for your time.
Thank you, Alondra. That is our last speaker for open forum this evening. We're now closing open forum. Now moving on to our consent calendar. Is anybody pulling anything from the consent calendar? If not, can I have a motion for adoption of the consent calendar, please?
I move that we adopt the consent calendar. 1A, waive reading of resolutions and ordinances. 1B, approve minutes for the November 19, 2024 through April 1, 2025 regular and special meetings. That we accept the warrants list for the month of March 2025. That we adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute amendment number 1 to the professional services agreement with Sunset Ecological Solutions in the amount of $29,900 for a total not to exceed contract amount of $59,800 to provide continued biological monitoring during construction activities at the Stone Pine Cove Affordable Housing Project through June 2025.
But before the second, can I ask a clarifying question? On the minutes, two of us weren't at council meetings in November, so how do we want to go ahead and approve them all, or just we abstain from that, or how do we not?
Oh, what? Go ahead.
Okay, so Councilmember Nagengast, I think we have two options here. We could do one motion for the minutes be from November 19th, 2024 to December 16th, 2024, and have the previous council make a motion for that, or we could approve them all. leave it to council
So
discretion.
it's okay to approve them even though I wasn't there? I mean, it's okay, or?
So my general recommendation is that if you've watched the video of the meeting, then you can approve them. Otherwise, I would recommend Maggie's first option, which is just to approve these with two motions, and Councilmembers Nagengast and Johnson can abstain from the meetings that you were not in attendance.
Can I second to do that?
Sure.
Well,
How would you phrase the second
yeah, how would I
motion,
do that?
I would suggest you perhaps make a new motion to approve the minutes. And Maggie, which are the dates where they attended?
November 19th through December 16th of 2024 for the first section, and then the same meeting, but the second half of that meeting would be December 16th through April 1st.
So the motion for Councilmember Nagengast would be from the minutes of December 16th through April 1st, 2025, correct?
Correct.
Yep, that would be your motion, Councilmember. So should you choose to make that?
Okay, so move.
Second.
Okay, let's just take a roll call for the hell of it. Roll call, please.
Yes, Councilmember Johnson.
Yes.
Councilmember Nagengast.
Yes.
Councilmember Penrose.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Reddick.
Yes.
And Mayor Brownstone.
Yes.
Motion
Thank you.
carries.
So we still need to take care of the other minutes.
Now-
Councilmember Penrose, do you want to make a motion for those?
Yeah, I move that we approve the minutes for November 19th, 2024 through December
16th.
16th, 2024.
Second?
I'll mix it up. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone against?
Anyone?
I won't ask for any abstentions.
Okay. That's how we do it. Thank you.
You asked for abstain?
Yes.
I
any
abstain.
Okay.
Sorry.
And
Next time, let's just really write all this out in detail ahead of time, just so we'll all be on the same page. Great. Thank you. Now moving on to resolutions and staff reports. Our first item 3A, is appointment of a youth member to the Parks and Recreation Commission.
Mr. Mayor, I'll be just providing a very brief verbal presentation on this. Just as a reminder, this was brought before you a month ago. Last year, our our Recreation Commission asked to explore the addition of 2 new members to the commission for a total of 7 commissioners, and 2 of them being youth, but full voting members and full members of the commission. We had 1 application that was approved earlier this year. 2 meetings ago, we brought forward an application for the 2nd seat. That individual, as you're reminded, has a familiar relationship with 2 of the existing members of the Recreation Commission. Some concerns were raised about both the optics of that and also the ability for the legality of it. And the city attorney was asked to do some research on that issue. She was able to review the bylaws, and the way that they're written means that with a body of 7 commissioners, a quorum and a majority are formed with 4. And with only 3 members of the family, they don't form that quorum, and therefore it wouldn't be an issue legally. And in the meantime, we've received 2 more applications. And so before you tonight are 3 applications for that 1 seat. And so we are hoping that you all can have a discussion and make a decision on appointment of one of those applications for the commission. That is the end of my report.
Were there 2 openings or just 1?
So we originally had 2 openings, the 2 new seats. One of those has already been filled by appointment several meetings ago.
Right.
Okay, first, are there any clarifying questions? If not, I'm going to take public comment. I believe we have one public comment from Crystalline Geet.
Crystalline, I am speaking as a resident of Ventura Street in Brownstone's district. I would like to take this opportunity to ask the council and the staff to use this agenda item as a platform to really look at the policies for when families want to be on the same commission. I do recall that when dear Adam wanted to join the Parks and Rec and Paulette was already on it, there was some concerns about there being two family members, and I believe at that time the commission council was 5 with a quorum of 3, which means that if 2 were absent, they would create a majority of the voting body. Because the youngest Sweet Eisen is still on your docket as somebody who can be approved tonight, that means that there's still the opportunity to have 3 Eisens on a single commission council, where the bylaws say that 4 would be the quorum, which means that if the others are absent, or even if a few are absent and there's still 5, they make the majority of the deciding voting factor. I would like to just say, Eisens, I have nothing against you personally. I do think that this is a fatal flaw in the documentation for councils to even allow this to continue to come forth, because it does not feel prudent as a community member that a single family could guide such a powerful commission that has the ability to make such strong opinions on behalf of our city. So I would please ask that staff be recommended to draft an ordinance or policy in regards to limiting the city's liabilities should multiple family members want to be on a single council or commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Crystal. I had a quick question. Do we have any, so now it's 7 members, right, on the Park and Recs? And how long has it been 7 members?
Well, it hasn't been 7 members yet.
Yeah.
We had our first meeting with our one appointment, so we had 6 members at our last meeting.
And without the 6 members, it was 5, right?
Correct.
So what's been the average attendance at most of the Park and Rec meetings? How often have we had 1 or 2 people missing? Or
It varies, but seasonally we do have lower attendance at those meetings for sure.
Okay. Any comments, thoughts from council?
Yeah, I do. I think that I am really grateful for the work that the Eisens have put in on Parks and Recs. I think they are very thoughtful, very caring, and they try to represent the entire city in their recommendations. However, I would have to say that I don't think it's good precedent for us to have 3 members of the same family on the same commission. So I am going to be voting against the 3rd Eisen.
Or for somebody else.
Or say what?
Or for someone else. Or we can vote for someone else.
Yeah. No. At any rate, that's it's not just the public perception, which I think is extremely important, but it's actually the fact that they could constitute a quorum and make a recommendation, which, in my point of view, would not be fair or good for our community. So,
Thank you, Councilmember.
I focused on just their applications. Francesca Rebecca and Caleb. I don't know if I was that age, I could put together some of those sentences that they actually do that want to be a part of government. I don't even know if I really realized, what government did, let alone want to sit on a commission or a committee. So I commend all three of them for wanting to be a part of this process. When I ran for council, I always referred to my mother, always said, if you want to change something, you have to participate. And that's why I got into it. So I think it's fantastic to see participation at a young age, because we hear so much, oh, you can't do anything. Yes, you can. I heard that earlier tonight. So I think it's great that we have this interest. I know one of the applicants, Francesca Frankie, we've called her. I've known her a long time, and it's fun to watch, each one of these, I'm sure, to grow, but to see somebody with an interest to come and want to participate, and I'm happy that we get to make that decision.
I would like to hear what the vice mayor has to say.
Well, I kind of share Paul's view in the sense that it was really interesting and happy to see, three, outstanding youth interested in serving in government. I know a little bit about two of them, but I was impressed with, all three's comments. I do share the concern about having three family members on a commission. I agree with Deborah that the Eisens are among the most active people on that commission, always bring fresh ideas, work on things outside of the meetings, bring a lot of value. And I'm sure that Caleb would as well. But I do think I'm not comfortable with having three family members, because I actually think it would be easy for them to dominate because they're also, active and creative, and I'd still like to see Caleb come as a public member and contribute. I think he would. And I know he's friends with the Daytome gentleman. So I'm happy to, consider the candidates and hear from my fellow council members, but I do share the concerns about the three, yeah.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Patrick?
Can I abstain on this one completely, or do I have to pick somebody? I don't feel comfortable with having three people on. That's one thing, but I love the Eisens. I don't have any problem. Yeah. So I would like to abstain. I've never done that, but I just, because I don't want to, it's too close to home. I feel like it's something that's close to me, and I don't want to create any waves.
Well, I resonate with that because I'm very close with the Eisens myself. And, feeling the sensitivity of that decision. So, ideally, my initial thought was, gee, I probably shouldn't be weighing in on this. But I understand where you're coming from. Although, as a somewhat experienced council member, I know that it's frowned upon to not rely on abstentions to avoid making tough decisions. And when you do abstain, you're basically required to say why. That's the standard protocol. And it's discouraged. It's essentially a no vote, on the process. I think maybe the city attorney could weigh in on that too. But
Thank you. I was actually just going to reiterate what the vice mayor just said. The council rules of procedure do address abstentions, and they are discouraged, but they are allowed. And the council rules do say that when you do abstain, you need to provide a reason. So, thank you.
The only reason why I'm saying that, because I know when a project's too close to your home, then you can abstain based on that. And this project is somewhat close to my home. It's 3 doors down.
except an abstention is different from a recusal. Recusal is required if you have financial conflicts of interest as described in California, government code. Abstention gives you a little more flexibility. It's a little more, personal, it's not a conflict of interest, or the appearance of a conflict of interest, but it's, I know in Sacramento, having worked in Sacramento, that a lot of legislators just don't show up for votes. That's kind of how they abstain. But yeah, it's discouraged, but you still can do it if you choose, yeah.
Care to change your mind then? Knowing now that you've explained a little more about abstaining versus recusal.
Well, if I recuse, then it's basically it's a no vote, or just, I don't want to vote. Yeah, okay. It's not it's too close to home for me, and it's too personal, and I don't feel comfortable with it.
Okay. Well, would anyone like to make a motion regarding any of these candidates? Thank you.
I'd like to move that we nominate Francesca DeRosa to take the position on the on the Parks and Recs Committee.
I second it.
Can we have a roll call vote?
Councilmember Johnson.
Yes.
Councilmember Nagengast.
Yes.
Councilmember Penrose.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Reddick.
Yes.
Mayor Brownstone.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Council. And I will point out that Francesca is in the audience here, civically engaged, and we're very excited to have her join us at our upcoming Rec Commission meeting, and we'll reach out to you and get you some training as well. So congratulations.
Congratulations to Francesca, everyone.
I'd also love to just point out that the council and staff have been really deliberate about engaging the youth in the community. We've got representatives from our clerk communications team here who have been really instrumental in facilitating the Future Leaders Civics Academy and outreaching to the youth, and I think we're seeing the fruits of it, and I think that bodes well for the future of our community. So thanks to them, and thanks to you for supporting those types of programs.
Thank you to staff.
Thank you all around.
You run a heck of a program, Colleen.
You can see how much fun we all have here participating in government. Thank you. Okay, our next item on resolutions and staff reports is item 3B. And we're going to have a report out on one of our favorite topics, the 2025 Summer Beach Update. And by the way, it's nice to see quite a few articles lately that Half Moon Bay is constantly getting mentioned really as a jewel of San Mateo County in terms of our tourist industry. So
Where did you see that?
I saw a few things on NBC News and a number of other articles, and I guess tourism, a lot of interest in tourism picking up again. So it's good. It's good to feel like we're the jewel of the crown, so it's great.
Can I echo something on that? Dad's Luncheonette, the chef, I guess he's well-known, and one of the gal that did the photos for him was one of my customers, so I saw that name. I was like, wow. So we went, I didn't know about the book, and we went to the nonprofit, and we did the farmer's market, nonprofit, and then lunch at Dad's Luncheonette, and then there was these stack of books, and my wife's a big cook, and so she inquires about the book. I bought the book for her. Then it was on Drew Barrymore's show, put us on the map again. The next week, the next following weekend was last weekend, I did a tour of their museum and the jail. I guess Lynn was the one that put that on, and she wanted me to see it, and I thought that was great. And she goes, did you see the line at Luncheonette? It was huge because they were famous because of the book they wrote, the chef wrote. So stuff like that's putting us on the map. This is good stuff. It's really good stuff. Really cool.
And I can concur with that. I tried to have lunch at Dad's Luncheonette on Saturday after the farmer's market, and too many people. Had to go somewhere else.
Great.
It's a good problem to have.
All right. Well, let's hear our summer beach report, and which will include information about enforcement for beaches and access points, and some of the improvements that have been made, and our, we have a very cooperative participation and work with, it's not just a couple of city beaches, but we work a lot with state parks and county as well. And it only works when we all work together because the beaches are all kind of connected in a lot of ways. So it takes a lot of cooperation among quite a few different agencies. So thanks for that.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. It's a pleasure to be here with you this evening. It was fascinating listening to the conversation that we just had, because with all of the beauty and charm that comes with Half Moon Bay, the summer months can be problematic for traffic and increased use of the beaches and stuff like that. So we're kind of here just to give you a little bit of an update about what Public Works does every year and what the Sheriff's Department does every year. So yeah, we'll just get right into it and give you guys a little update, and we'll take some questions from y'all at the end. The request we have for you this evening is to receive the 2025 Summer Beach Update on the City and the Sheriff's Office efforts for the notification, management, and enforcement for beaches and access points within the city limits, and provide feedback to staff. A little bit of background, the San Mateo County coast, as you guys were just discussing, including the city of Half Moon Bay, is a prime recreation destination for the Bay Area and visitors from around the world. Within city limits, there are several state and city beaches, including Half Moon Bay State Beach, Poplar Beach, Surfers Beach, and Manhattan Beach. We do have a very informational page on our website. I have the link listed there, and I actually checked it out today. It's got a bunch of good information on it, so feel free to visit that for some more information about Half Moon Bay beaches. And a little overview about what we're kind of be presenting to you all tonight. Public outreach and notification, police patrol and enforcement, traffic and parking management, and public facilities and amenities. So the public outreach and notification part is one of the more challenging things. Obviously, trying to get the message out to folks about what's going on is a multifaceted approach. We cooperate tons with the Sheriff Department, who places out all the variable message signs, VMS or PCMS, whatever you'd like to call them, and the messaging that actually goes on there. We take guidance from the council and from the city manager's office about what messaging we're actually going to be putting out for the week and the weekend, and based on expected traffic and stuff like that. The portable VMS on local roads and highways, social media channels. Colleen, she was just here. She was keeping my seat warm for me, but she does a great job keeping the public aware through those channels. Next door, is big, especially on the community where the traffic accidents are, stuff like that. The weekly city e-news, and we also partner with the Cabrillo Unified School District and others to get the message out about what's going on at the beach. For this one, I'm going to turn it over to Captain Chichov, who's here with us this evening to talk about the police part of this.
Good evening. I think that's a little better. Okay, good evening. Thank you for having me. So hopefully nothing here is so much of a surprise. It's really going to be tailored to the situation as it unfolds. Like we were talking about before, that it's going to depend on the weather. The weather varies, so it's going to have to be flexible. So we do have a Polaris off-road, which is great for the trails, but mainly for the beach. That allows us to patrol the beach as well as reach people that might otherwise be difficult to get to, including bringing supplies to them if needed and evacuating them if needed. At the same time, this also allows us to use patrol deputies because it prevents them from extending their response time if something should occur elsewhere in the city. The Polaris allows them to get back to their cars and respond someplace else if they're so needed. We normally, during the summer months, because of the uptick in traffic, do increase patrols, especially later in the evening, early in the morning. The beach gates at, well, I think you're actually discuss the closure of beach gates in just a minute, but what we found is by going there early in the evening, that it helps reduce problems later on. Obviously, we see a pickup truck full of pallets. Yes, that's probably going to create a problem later, which we're going to go to in a minute. We will have additional staffing. Now, exactly how that looks, like I said, will be an ongoing discussion. One of the advantages that we have is that we can call from other bureaus. We don't have to simply rely on the people that we have assigned here. So, and that can include not only regular deputies, it can include bicycle patrols, motors, both dirt bikes, street bikes, and anybody else that we may need given on the situation. focused enforcement at impacted intersections and road segments. That is, again, we can have our patrol deputies do that. However, as the summer months increase, traffic increases, it may be better to bring on additional deputies because by the very definition, the reason we're there is because of congestion, and that's going to prevent response times to other places in the city. So bringing in additional deputies to handle that while leaving the patrol deputies free to address other concerns is something that we'll be addressing, like I said, on an ongoing basis. And we will continue working with the CHP. They've been a great partner in the past. They're actually surprisingly helpful for a state agency, very interactive. And something that I don't think was on here was the use of the signboards, which I don't know if we get into it later, but we now are up to, I believe, 6 signboards. One is out for repairs right now. That's an increase, and an advantage of that, as you all know, that the problem with signboards, if they're too fixed, they're too static, people start to ignore them. So by having more, we can vary them not only in terms of the message, but in location, so we get more attention. So those are some of the tactics that we'll be using as the weather gets nicer.
And definitely to touch up on the signboards a little more, so we definitely like guidance from the council and the city manager's office about the actual messaging. I mean, we have a good idea of what the messaging is going to be, and it varies depending on what events are going on where. Say if there's an event up north, we want to kick people south. If there's an event going south, we want to kick people up north. So we look at all that stuff when we work on the messaging and try and get it out in a timely manner ahead of the weekend so that we're not dealing with last minute changes or bottlenecks or anything like that, especially at the major choke points that we have in town. Good. All right, traffic and parking management, everybody's favorite subject on the coast side. Traffic on 92 and Highway 1 will increase, especially on holiday weekends and heat waves. Impacts anticipated are increased traffic and delays, parking demand, and spillover onto public streets. This is especially problematic in like the Alsace area near Poplar Beach parking lot. That parking lot, even though it has 100 and something odd spaces of paid parking, will fill up very quickly on a warm summer day. What is being done? We're increasing enforcement of traffic and parking regulations and continuing searching for other ways to manage traffic. If the council has any ways that we can manage traffic, we're more than willing to listen to it. We can expand 92 a couple lanes in each direction. That's probably not feasible, but it wouldn't be the worst idea in the world. And ultimately, access to the coast is protected under the California Coastal Act and part of the backbone of the local economy. Public facilities and amenities. Public Works Department is responsible for maintenance and operations of beaches, public parking lots, and portions of the coastal trail. The city supplements these efforts by contracting with Abundant Grace through the Coastal Clean Team program to assist with litter pickup and on Poplar Beach, Poplar Parking Lot, the coastal trail, and nearby neighborhoods. Maintenance duties that Public Works staff do include the following. The city will deploy maintenance staff to staff Poplar Beach and service other city beaches, facilities 7 days a week, inclusive of Memorial Day, Independence Day, and Labor Day. Weekend coverage will primarily be provided via maintenance assistant. Other maintenance staff will also be used for on-call demands such as warm inland temperatures as well as emergency coverage. The warm inland temperatures, the Public Works Department for the last 5 years has been using a rather unscientific method of determining when we need to up our coverage. We look at the city of Hayward and their weather. They're a city in the East Bay that touches the water, so it's relatively cool compared to the rest of the East Bay. If it's projected to be 85 or above in Hayward, chances are it's going to be a madhouse out in Half Moon Bay because people are looking to escape the heat, especially as you get farther east past Hayward. So we're constantly monitoring the weather throughout the summer months and making determinations about staffing almost on a daily basis, just trying to figure it out and see how many people we need to get out there just to make sure that we're covered. And we also monitor and replace signage, barriers, and other infrastructure needed. And perhaps one of the most important things we do, and very timely, based on the presentation that we received earlier from Tarun, is that we ensure the emergency lifelines are in place and operational. So currently the city does have 3 of those units installed. We have one at the bottom of Poplar, and we have one at the bottom of Miramontes, or the Ritz, whatever you'd like to call that, Manhattan Beach, I believe that's what that one's called, and one at we call it the Slot, spot, so the vertical access for the horses. So we currently have 3 of those units installed. They've been great. We did lose one to a freak tide a couple years ago, but we replaced it rather quickly, and we check them constantly just to make sure. We did have an issue with vandalism on another one at Poplar, but we are very supportive of those being there for the community, and we check them frequently just to make sure that they're in good working order there and visible. Okay. In conclusion, the coastside can expect traffic and related impacts through the peak 2025 season. These impacts will be more acute during Bay Area heat waves and holiday weekends. This update provides a summary of the city's, sheriff's, and other stakeholder operations to alleviate some of the issues and impacts that will be felt by residents and visitors alike. Staff seeks feedback from the council on these efforts to ensure resources allocated to adequately address your concerns. And with that, questions?
Questions, comments? Yeah.
So thank you for that thorough presentation.
You're very
And
welcome.
Things have definitely improved, I think, over the years. I do have a question about Tunitas Creek Beach. So that's actually in the county, and it's, somewhat distant. But one of my concerns would be, I think it's opening this summer, and I'm concerned about potentially losing some coverage in the city to address potential activities down at Tunitas Creek Beach, like at night. And also, I would direct the R&A Foundation to consider a life ring at Tunitas Creek Beach, which is a newly renovated beach at Tunitas Creek Road, right in that area there. I'm sure they could use a ring, too. I think it's going to be a very popular beach. It's a very beautiful beach. It's going to have lots of amenities and attract a lot of people, I think. And they're doing a lot of parking improvements and things. So my question would be, is the county upping their staffing during summer months to deal with Tunitas Creek Beach? Because I'm worried if they're not, then we might suffer, our coverage might suffer as a result.
I do not know for sure. I can check on that. Usually, historically, we have not. However, one of the things that I would note is that, again, one of the advantages is we can move people around to ensure that we have coverage. Tunitas is a little bit of a ways. For instance, we had a recent incident at Amesport Landing, which I'm sure you're aware of. And what we did was we actually borrowed deputies from some of the other areas and cities to help cover Half Moon Bay to maintain that coverage. And the idea would be we would do the same thing. Say there were an emergency down in Tunitas and we had to pull somebody from Half Moon Bay, the easiest thing to do would obviously just reach out probably to Emerald Hills or one of the South County units and ask them to roll over to ensure coverage of Half Moon Bay. But I will check and get back to you on the increase in Tunitas.
Yeah, it would be nice to just get some policy information about how the county expects to treat that, I think. And then my other question would be, is there anything we can do about the fireworks issue? It seems like it starts about a week before the 4th of July, and then it goes on for about a month afterwards, and then, of course, it starts up again around Labor Day. And I know it's tough because you make a call, somebody gets out there in half an hour, people expect that, they stop, they hide, you leave, they come back out. I don't know, it's a problem, though.
Yeah, and unfortunately it is. We do our best to be out there and keep an eye out there. We have done the fireworks buyback, which has been successful in years past. I haven't gotten word on the funding. I'll have to check on that for this year. But like you said, the best we can do is try and be close to the beaches. That tends to be where most of the fireworks go off, which I'm actually kind of thankful for, because less fire risk at the beach than, at the top.
Especially now that the maps have been redrawn and that whole area is in the very high fire risk, so.
Yes.
Thank you.
I just wanted to piggyback on Vice Mayor's concerns about Tunitas Beach. The county put a ton of money in renovating the beach. And, a couple of years ago, and you may remember, it was Party Central there. And rave party. Yeah, it was trashed a lot by large numbers of folks. So I would think the county has a lot of interest in protecting that investment, but maybe staff can just reach out to Ray Mueller's office and just get a sense if they're thinking about that for the summer to, again, protect that investment, and maybe they hire some extra help, get some rangers in there perhaps, you know.
You know, I mean, it could be an upside for Poplar Beach because people are going there instead. But anyway, it would just be good to check in, I think, and yeah.
No, absolutely, and thank you for bringing that up.
So I attended the Planning Commission meeting on the Redondo Beach gate. I didn't go there for the gate. I went there for the CEQA and all the other stuff they were talking about, and the cookies. But the Redondo Beach, that took, I mean, it took a long time. There was a lot of talk about that. The final was that we were going to have the gate similar to the Poplar Gate, so that it would open and close in the same times, and then just follow. I think, Matthew, you had a point, let's be consistent. And I'm assuming that's what we're going to do also then, if that gets finalized at the CDP level?
Yes, if I may, through the mayor. The appeals period for that approval just ended last week, so we're in the process of kind of buttoning up the process. But yes, it'll follow it's in the ordinance code when these parking lots are, you know, these spaces are open and closed, and so it'll follow similar. 30 minutes after sunset is when we'll close it, and then it'll reopen at dawn.
So they'll all be consistent, all the gates will be all consistent with all the same rules then?
Generally. I mean, it's the same people closing and opening them, so, yeah, in some sort of successive order, yes.
One of the things, I know it's kind of goofy, you guys can laugh or not, I don't really care, but I thought it was kind of cool, was the message boards. If we could do, as you're leaving 92 on a hot day or a big weekend, to say something like, thank you for visiting Half Moon Bay, drive safe home. Just to say thank you for coming, in a way. Just if we have the boards available, I'm not sure.
Or stay and eat until the traffic clears.
In the traffic, the kids are getting hungry. Help them.
Thank you. I'm concerned about I'm curious about the policy around maintenance of the toilets. How is that, what is the policy? They're checked twice a day on weekends, or what? How does that work?
You're talking about the portable toilets at Poplar, Councilmember?
Portable toilets at Poplar and the one at Kelly.
At the end of Kelly. Yeah, they're serviced once a day. The staff looks in on it, and we're pretty aware, and we have a good idea of what's going on. So if we needed to up that frequency, I think we theoretically could, but the past once a day has, except for those few outlier days where it's just ridiculous, and it would be expensive, I'm not going to lie, on the weekends especially, to get that second service, because they don't typically staff, you know, a lot of people on the weekends. We would have to pay for it. There would be a premium, but it's certainly something that's doable.
So our staff doesn't maintain them?
No, it's all contracted out, Councilmember.
It's all contracted?
Yes.
Okay.
So if staff could get us to that number, and so we could at least take it under consideration, maybe pilot that out, see if it works.
This is not relevant, but it would be a question. Who's taking care of the men's toilet in MacDutra Park, which is across the street from City Hall? Is that?
The men's toilet is cleaned by our contract janitorial staff, a different contractor, so we contract out janitorial and a separate contract for all of the portables throughout town. It is maintained by public works staff, though.
Because the toilet is constantly blocked and constantly overflowing and doesn't flush.
We actually had to take the toilet apart last week. We found a blowtorch that had been flushed down that toilet.
Oh,
so those are just some of the myriad of issues that we have to deal with at that location. We were wondering why we were having those issues as well. Pulled the toilet completely off the flange, and there was a blowtorch lodged in the middle of the outfall.
I brought that forward to Matthew. The smell is so bad in there. Now we know the source.
Okay. Yeah, that bathroom at MacDutra, you know, we get comments, and it's a lot of benefit to the city if that somehow we figure out how to keep that bathroom clean. Okay.
The women's restroom is actually fairly clean. It's just the men's restroom that's not.
Of course.
Paul.
Yep, thank you. Thank you for the report. And just a couple of things. Where's Manhattan Beach again? I knew this a long
I
time ago.
believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but Manhattan is at the bottom of the Ritz, right? Miramontes?
I think it's north of the Ritz, so like below the
That'd be
18th hole.
Redondo? Is that near?
Redondo's farther north.
Right, so it's kind of, all right. So I remember that before, and I tried to figure out where Manhattan was. We used that term.
South of the Ritz is ours.
South of the Ritz is ours, and we, just among the maintenance staff, just refer to it as the Ritz. So I'm not sure what that is.
There's another term for it. Cañada Verde. Cañada Verde Beach. Then you go north of the Ritz, you have Manhattan, then Redondo Beach, and then Poplar.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's the other Manhattan Beach. Of course, there's one in Southern Cal, too. You mentioned, Patrick brought up about the gate. Will that gate be implemented prior to the CLT parking lot being completed, or is that only going to be implemented once the CLT work is completed?
The CDP's been approved. It was not appealed. We're planning to implement it very soon.
So they're parking down on the edge of the dirt area down at the end of Redondo. So you're going to have to clear them out to close that gate. You'll have to. So that could
There'll
be a
have to be a patrol. People warned. They'll have to leave. If they don't, they'll have to pull to the closed gate and call.
Right. This will be new to them. So yeah. All right. And then so Memorial, 4th of July, and Labor are all weekends. So, we hit the big three are all on the weekends. So you mentioned about the facilities. Trash is also a problem. Do we do a little extra service just because there's that extra day and they have more trash?
Absolutely. So on a typical weekend, especially if it's warm on a holiday weekend, we'll have a person scheduled, and likely we'll bring another person in just for coverage. And part of their primary duties that day are going to be trash. Okay. If we expect it to get really bad, sometimes what we've done in the past, and it's actually quite effective, is we'll leave our dump truck out at Poplar Beach, kind of by the second gate, right before you get to the bluff top, with a sign on it that says, "Put your trash in here." And the guys will come in the morning, haul the trash out, and replace it back empty, just to make sure that we have the extra capacity. I mean, we have 3 3-yard dumpsters out there, but on a busy day, those will get filled up. And, let's be honest, not everyone is diligent about putting their trash in the dumpsters as well. If we have that closer to their cars, like they pass the dump truck on the way out, they're more likely to throw their trash in there. So that's just one of the approaches that we take. Besides throwing bodies at it, we tend to take that approach with the dump truck as well.
All right, good. And you mentioned pallets. Mm-hmm. I can tell you, all the streets in Alsace, we know when the burn's going to go on, the pallets start stacking up. So that's gone on forever. So I don't know if there's any what you do, what you don't do, kind of like fireworks.
Well, we did have the fire pit pilot, and I think that was kind of successful. That might be something to consider to alleviate the bonfire issue if it's more of like a controlled burn and people have the access to do it. Don't get me wrong, they're still going to bring pallets, but it's just a more controlled burn at that point if they're doing it inside the fire pits. Yeah. And I think we still physically own 3 of them, or they're still on site that are operational. So just something to look at if the council wants to go in that direction.
Mm-hmm. And then is there a decision made if we have to man traffic control? On the busy weekends, do we ever, are we just so busy it doesn't matter what you do? It's just, it's saturated. Traffic has nowhere to go. You can't move them around. But if you had sometimes an officer, and I don't know who makes that determination, can keep people honest. People do stupid things when they sit in traffic sometimes, and just having a presence can deter that or even help. I don't know. Again, I'm not sure once it's full capacity, if you can, you can get them out anywhere. But I look sometimes just keeping folks from doing stupid things.
No, absolutely. And it actually has been pretty effective, mainly because not only does it keep people honest, but frequently there will be, say, a flow of traffic on Highway 1, but if people block the intersection trying to get on 92, well, now we've just gridlocked Highway 1. So, yeah, having officers over there that exactly like you said, just their presence tends to make people stop for an amber instead of risking it.
So we do that? Do you make that decision, or that's just, is that something we regularly schedule, or is that just something we determine as necessary?
As necessary.
As necessary.
And again, it's going to be really a case of kind of trying to forecast the weather and what the need will be. I mean, because the thing is, it's always kind of balancing resources. We could do it every weekend, but that's going to use up a lot of resources. So best to target it.
I'm not saying necessarily do that, but I just know the big three I'm looking at this summer.
Absolutely.
Of course, you put another no right turn between 2 and 5 signs too, but okay. Very good. Well, thanks. I appreciate, the effort and, and I'm sure you guys get numerous phone calls.
Yes, we do.
This summer. Yeah.
I have one last thing. On that meeting with the Redondo Beach Gate, there's a trash can that they brought up that's getting overfilled and abused because the gate was open, so they freeload my stuff and just put it in here. Can we keep an eye on that and just to see what's going on and make sure that, because that's one of the concerns that they had, why they wanted the gate closed. So there's two-tier to that. And plus, of course, partying at night, and speeding. So those are the three things.
We definitely keep an eye on that one as much as possible. There was a couple of used toilets out there last week that we had to remove. So, we try and stay on top of all of that stuff so that those toilets don't stack up, and then it's just unrealistic to get them all out of there. But it's an unfortunate thing because of the parking out there. We do kind of need to provide trash for them, and it's basically free because of the franchise agreement with Republic, but we do check that frequently, and especially when we do start closing the gates, the way it'll work is the sheriff's department will sweep and close the gates at night, and public works staff will open it in the morning. So I will direct the guys to go down to the trash can first thing right after they open the gate and check and make sure that there was no illegal dumping overnight.
Vice Mayor has one last question.
Not for you. It's for the city manager, actually, but thanks for all you do, both of you. Appreciate it.
This is great. Thank you.
So nobody appealed to the city council over the Redondo Beach Gate. Do we expect an appeal to the Coastal Commission?
There was a representative of staff from the Coastal Commission that was online for the Planning Commission hearing that Councilmember Johnson mentioned. Our hope is that by participating and hearing the kind of boots on the ground community concerns, that kind of gave them a better perspective than what staff had shared. We have not heard anything since then. We received a very strongly worded letter from the Coastal Commission the day of that hearing, which made us think if this gets approved, it's going to get appealed by them. We haven't heard anything since then. My understanding is they wouldn't appeal until after the regular appeal period had ended. So really, their window just opened. I'm not sure how long they have, but at this point, since we haven't received an appeal, we're ready to move forward and start the operational effort around closing that gate. And if something changes, we'll let you know.
Great. I don't think there's any public comment. Correct? And just for members of the public who might...
Actually, one just raised, as you said that.
Oh, sorry. Kimberly Williams, go ahead, you're on.
Hi, thank you, Mayor Brownstone. I just wanted to comment on Redondo. I also attended the Planning Commission meeting. This is Kimberly Williams representing Surfrider Foundation, a local San Mateo County chapter. I just want to encourage the city we chose not to appeal locally, to wait and see how the city would work with the Coastal Commission on meeting the requirements that they apparently haven't completely met. And I would like to encourage the city to continue to work with the Coastal Commission to meet those requirements. We note that the gate at Poplar is also an unpermitted gate, and so that will also come up at some point. We at Surfrider would like to work with the city as much as possible to find solutions to some of these issues that the gate is meant to partially address. And we just want to encourage sort of broader thinking on how to solve some of these problems over the long term so that the gate doesn't become the default remedy. Thank you.
Thank you, Kimberly. Okay, and just for the knowledge of the community who is here or watching a recording and who's here live or remote, this is an ongoing conversation about summer beaches, and different situations develop. Sometimes we have a 3-day weekend that's totally cloudy, hardly anyone shows up. Other times it's scorcher. So we will always be meeting the needs as they develop. It's not like we've covered every possibility tonight, but that's what, living here in Half Moon Bay, we know that things come up that we haven't 100% planned for, but I think we've gotten better and better over the years, actually. And I think Republic Services, right, they're the ones who service. Isn't one of their managers lives out here now? I think one of the new ones, as I recall. The other person did, but I thought another person did. No,
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I think Giselle Silva lives out here on the coast. One of the office staff. Yeah.
Yeah, but maybe not anymore. Okay, never mind. Thanks. Okay. So our next item is we're going to get a quick workshop on our capital improvement program. We're going to receive a report and provide any direction we feel regarding any modifications to the capital improvement program. And I believe Maz will be giving us that staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of the council and public. Maz Bozerinia, I'm the Public Works Director and City Engineer for Half Moon Bay. And I'm here tonight to go through our capital improvement program workshop to kick off our CIP planning as we move forward in this budget cycle. So tonight is really just to provide a little bit of update on some of the projects and what we've got going on, as well as get some direction from council on our capital improvement program. Specifically, there was a lot of conversation during priority session and leading up to this. So the way we're presenting the CIP tonight is actually providing an update of the 24-25 list and really looking at ways of prioritizing and categorizing our projects as we move forward into the future years, given our financial situation, considering some of the needs as far as maintenance costs and support, as well as balancing the budget overall. Just for tonight, I'll go a little bit about what a capital improvement program is. We'll talk about our projects and program categories, and this is this is another one where we were looking for direction from council. In the past several years, we've been putting a lot of our larger maintenance projects into the programmatic categories, and that is the way that we've been doing it over the last 5-6 years, but we could also look at that into the operating budget. However we want to do that, that's up for discussion. And then also talk a little bit about the proposed 5-year CIP, which is more of a long-term outlook as far as projects and programming. Again, that's for a 5-year period. We're not looking at budgeting for 5 years, but kind of a forecast of what the budget would look like over a 5-year period. And just to highlight that since the inception of this more robust CIP document, the council's contributed about $3 million of general funds towards the CIP. Last year was one of the leaner years where we only looked at $1.8 million of general funds towards various CIP projects. And that, again, that's something that we need to discuss as funding is going to be limited in the near term. Obviously, grant funding is going to be key for a lot of these projects, especially when we consider big projects on the highway, for example. Just a little background, what is a capital improvement program? It's essentially a tool that jurisdictions utilize to identify current and future needs to enhance the community, whether it's the quality of life or experience for residents or visitors, or providing additional amenities. And there are 3 primary areas. It helps to facilitate the scheduling of those public improvements, especially for things that span multi-years. As we know, a lot of major projects are not completed in one fiscal year cycle, so that helps us to plan for those things as they take multiple years to do. It also helps to prioritize and in an orderly fashion, put together some of these projects, so that we're consistent with our general plan and adopted master plans that we have. That we work through in multiple facets. And then as well as helping us be eligible for some of the grant funding that we talked about that's out there, especially for some of our transportation projects. I'm thinking like active transportation programs. We have some of our MTC funding, the Metropolitan Transportation Commission funding that help. So that's state, local, and federal dollars. Half Moon Bay CIP is comprised of two main components. The first one is our one-year capital program and budget. Again, that's the annual authorization of funding necessary for the upcoming fiscal year. And so essentially, when you add that capital budget to the operating budget, that is what totals our overall city budget. And then the second component that I mentioned was that 5-year outlook. You know, what's on the horizon? What are some of the costs that we can anticipate that will be coming up? Not necessarily asking for the funding right now in the next fiscal year, but what would be coming up as we move forward. So I won't go through the list in detail. I was trying to figure out the best way to present the list of projects. We've got a large number of projects and programs, 55, which is pretty considerable. That's a high number for a jurisdiction of our size. And so what I have, I'm going to go through some of the categories here, and you'll see some of the progress updates. This was an attachment in the staff report, and we can refer back to it. I'm not going to hone in on any specific project in particular, but I'm happy to go back and discuss it as we deliberate about priorities and our outlook for next fiscal year. So again, our CIP, to help organize it, we've put it into different programmatic categories. So stormwater is one of the main specific ones, where we have our green infrastructure program. We have some of our watershed analysis. Those are the types of things that go into the stormwater category. Then we've got our economic development area, where some of the some of the larger efforts in the past have come through, like our downtown streetscape master plan, as well as our climate adaptation plan that we are nearing completion on. Then we go into some of our operational improvements. As you can see, we had some concessions in the last fiscal year. We did not have funding in 24-25 for IT replacement or fleet management, or looking at large equipment replacements. And not that we didn't necessarily need any of these things, but we did not front load these, and we would have, the plan was to come to council for asks with anything significant that was necessary. Luckily, we were able to move forward in this last fiscal year without needing anything. That's a testament to some of our staff maintaining the equipment and things that we do have, as well as the council supporting us in previous years by replacing some pretty significant pieces of infrastructure and equipment. So this year we were able to go by without those asks. And then the other category, which we've spent a lot of time and energy and money on over the last several years, is our parks improvements. Carter Park being one of the larger ones, obviously, but we've got several on the list. Frenchman's Creek Phase 2 was an item that came up last council meeting, where we're going a little bit back to the drawing board and revising our approach a little bit on that project. Then we go into our facility improvements. That's one of the other large categories, where we have sidewalks, our urban forest management program. We have projects to help identify and support sensitive habitat and addressing some of the encampment issues, as well as some of our other facilities, like our HVAC systems and some of our roofs that have been programmed into the facilities. And then we also have our sewer improvement fund, which is, again, that's for the city sewer collection system. This is outside of the costs that we will talk about in upcoming items tonight for Sam. But these are the city's projects and programs as we implement studies to address our I&I issues, as well as repairing some of our old infrastructure, our pipes, as well as some of our manholes. And then the last two are the street improvements. The street improvements are not just our local roads and streets, but we also have some of our larger highway projects identified in the streets improvements. And then we also have our trails program, which trail improvements, which is more of the Class 1 facilities that we have on Highway 1, for example. We've got a number of those in the hopper in different phases, as well as some smaller projects like the pedestrian bike connection between Hatch Elementary School, which we actually have some funding from the San Mateo County Transportation Authority. So what I'd like to focus more on in this discussion tonight is really the prioritization of our capital projects. You know, in the staff report, we talked about several evaluation criteria that other jurisdictions have used, that I've used in other jurisdictions as a metric to try to identify some of those things. We haven't scored any of the projects under any categories, but we can talk about that. If that's something that the council desires, we can certainly consider looking at those projects and prioritizing them on specific criteria. This is just a sample of the 8 that I threw on here. We can talk, we could modify that. That's subjective to our needs. There's also been discussion about project management and staffing. So I think that's something that we also have to consider, is that, you know, as each project comes forward, there is some internal staffing requirement, whether you have the bandwidth and the internally to capture it, or even bring on a consultant to support special projects. Those are things that we need to discuss and consider. There's also the other, a much bigger piece, which is our maintenance requirements and demand. There are several new facilities that we've been bringing online over the last several years. The library was one of the first large facilities that the city embarked on. Really wonderful project. But at the same time, we doubled the square footage of facilities that we had to manage. So that was something, you know, so that's just one example that I'm utilizing. But as other projects, new projects come on board, obviously, we want to maintain the level of and quality of those parks, of that infrastructure. So as we bring on a project like Carter Park, that maintenance requirement and demand is going to increase because we have new amenities that we want to keep functioning for a very long time. And then I just wanted to put this as well, because we've also talked, you know, that was one of the main themes that we took away from the priority session, was this, you know, this idea of going back to our basics, addressing our existing infrastructure, making sure that our existing needs are being met, that we're maintaining our infrastructure and not letting things go, quote unquote, in a way that we are going to be doing larger, more expensive projects down the line. So trying to stay on top of those things while they're small and manageable before they snowball and turn into larger issues. So really tonight, that's what we want to talk about, is to discuss the prioritization of the projects, specifically whether we want to come to a consensus on the metrics around that. I have the full list of projects we can take a closer look at. What we will do with this information we hear tonight in this workshop is to refine this CIP list and present that in the upcoming council meeting. I've put May 6th here. I think that's doable based on our conversation tonight, to come back with an update on what we've heard tonight. And then ultimately, as part of our budget process, this CIP document will be routed through the different committees and commissions for updates and feedback, Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory, as well as our Parks and Recreation Committee, and of course our Planning Commission, because there is a requirement that we have a general plan consistency finding to be made by the Planning Commission. That is one of their rules, and so that is an absolutely must do, and all of that needs to be done before we adopt the budget, which we're looking at in the month of June. So that's why I've committed to bringing this updated list back to this council on the 6th, so that we can have a good, so we want to make sure that we address all of the concerns from the community as well as the council, making sure that we have the right projects on this list, making sure that we have a manageable list of projects, but also ensuring that we are continuing to have some vision of long-term amenities and improvements as we move forward, without forgetting what we got to do today. So that's the presentation. I'm happy to discuss thoughts, ideas, comments. And again, I've got the list, the 5-year capital budget here, and we can go through those categories in detail, but I didn't want to bore everybody with the details on each project. So please let me know any questions, any projects we want to jump into. I'm happy to respond.
Any questions on this side here? And again, let's focus on questions regarding prioritization and modifications, okay? Because that's where we want to end up with direction. Go ahead.
So when we did a listening session and we were doing our priorities, and didn't we give some feedback on capital projects, CIP, as part of our priority setting, which we haven't seen that yet, right? It hasn't been finalized.
That'll be on our next council agenda. We wanted to do this more extensive capital list.
So this is more fine tuning of that, the CIP
Yeah, and
process.
even the
'cause we
next-
did throw some things out there.
Yeah, and even the next item at the next meeting on priority setting will not be a fully baked work plan. It's feeding back what we're hearing here and from those meetings to try to get that more refined before we come back with the budget.
All right, thank you.
So reading all this stuff, number one, it used to be Kehoe Ditch, now it's Watercourse. I thought that was interesting because I read that. And then you have Seymour that is labeled as a ditch. What's the difference between a ditch and a watercourse? Why did it get changed?
Sorry, if I can get this mic working. You know, the term, so that's a really great question. I think ditch generally means something that's man-made, that's human-made, that's something that isn't natural. Watercourse is a more broad term. And so we've been trying to go towards this watercourse terminology because watercourse could be natural, it could be human-made. It's more generic as far as the use of it. I think there's been a bad connotation with ditch, and so that's why a lot of times we've been trying to change the terminology towards watercourse from the perspective of just general public information. That's the way I would describe watercourse. It's just more of a broad term for a stream or a river. All of those are under the category of watercourse. Ditch becomes a little bit more specific.
Just a quick aside. So even ditches can have habitat that's protected and subject to the Coastal Act. So even if it's man-made, you know, it's within the jurisdiction of the regulatory agencies, basically. So that's why you have a nicer title to it.
So the rules are the same. That's kind of what I was leading into. It's like, if you call it this, how are the rules applied if you call it this? And then I'm wondering why is Seymour called the ditch still? But we just haven't changed it. I just thought I'd bring it up because I read that. It's not a big deal. I would, after reading all this, with the Pillarcitos and the cleanup, which we thought was a good priority, I think, and I talked to Tina Manitis, and she's all for whatever has to happen. She's all in, and she's willing to do whatever she has to do. But I actually talked to her and said, don't do anything until you have CDPs and whatever you have to do because you're in a riparian area. So I wanted to make sure Matthew and I have talked about it. And she's not going to do, and she's talked to the sheriff, but she's talking at the low level. I had her talk to Richard Chichop. So she's all ready to go, and she wants to do what she has to do. She does not want what's going on in that property and her property. And I also want to point out that we actually paved that pathway next to her property in that area back when I was on the Planning Commission. So we actually we gave the access to the unhoused to go there, if you would. It kind of made it easier, right? Because we gave that pathway because before there was nothing there, and then now we have this pathway. So we have that to deal with. And I think that should be, because we all kind of agreed on a priority. The Kehoe Watercourse now called, which used to be the ditch when I was on Planning Commission, that's always been ongoing. I mean, how many years have we been talking about that? This place was packed here, and you know, that's died down. But like Jimmy said, it's never been resolved. But I think we should focus on that. But if we do that, we should be focusing on the Seymour, the Pullman, all these water courses that we have issues with because we see such a big problem. The stormwater projects and storm that you talked about, they all kind of go in hand, so they would all work together. So a master plan would be taking place to do all of these. The train depot, I just noticed, and Matthew, he actually sent me something on follow-up on that. When we did the photos, the paint's literally peeling off the side of the building on the left side. So that, I know that's a quick fix, but that's just something, if we don't address that, then we're going to be looking into more costs. Popular Street, I noticed that's not done, and I noticed these cool little ramps that got added in because Hal Bogner invited me to go look at it. You've got these ramps now to help so you can exit. They're cool, but you got to figure if you're going to put somebody in the back seat and exit, then how do you open the front door when there's a tree right there? So the spacings isn't right. So I think we should have a designated, like if you can measure between here and here for a small mid-sized car, then that ramp should line up so that people know park here, you can exit here, and there's not a tree in the way or something like that, just to be a little bit more accurate. Then in the pathway, there's actually a cable from the phone pole down in the pathway, which I think should be further out. And I thought that seemed kind of odd that you have a cabling anchoring in the pathway. ADA transition, I think, is always a good thing to make sure, and that's part of the ADA transition, if you take all these things that I'm bringing up. Let me see, that was it. That was pretty much it. So all the old things, like what Maz is saying, old things that aren't done and not taking on new projects, these are the things that I would say, considering is what I would like to see. Just let's start cleaning these old items out and get them done.
Yeah, I guess my main question is, when we're talking about Kehoe, Seymour, Roosevelt, all the different water courses, what we need is a watershed evaluation plan that addresses those issues east of Highway 1, and trying to fix something at the Roosevelt Dish without worrying about what's going on the east side of Highway 1 seems to me wasted money. So I don't want to see us go fix the Kehoe Dish, go fix the Roosevelt Dish. I'd much rather have us do what we've talked about now for maybe a year or two, and that is look at the whole coast, look at the watershed from the entire coast, and try to come up with a master plan that will alleviate the problems that we have on the west side of Highway 1. Because if we do that, then we have smaller problems on the west side. And I don't know what the answer is retention ponds. I don't know what the answer is. Pipes, I don't know.
I think that it could be a number of different things depending on each watershed. I think it's not going to be a cookie cutter approach for across the board. I think each one is going to have its own unique situations and challenges, right-of-way availability and constraints. And so one thing I did want to ask is if we wanted, because there was a little bit of back and forth at the priority session, and I just want to get a little bit more information from council on whether we want to go and do a more broad master planning effort, watershed management effort. Again, absolutely looking at the tributary area east of Highway 1 up into where that rainfall is really coming from, as well, and all the way down to the bluffs and to the beach. But when you're looking at that large scale, do we want to do something that's more robust, that touches all of it all at once? Or do we want to start looking at each watershed individually? You can do it either way, whether you want to but we could do it where we put all of our effort in and try to get all of this information all at once, or we start tackling one watershed at a time.
My sense is, and I may be wrong, but geographically sort of looking at it, if the water's coming down the hill like this, some of it's going to go to Roosevelt, some of it's going to go to Seymour, some is Kehoe. Isn't there a way we can work with it up here where we deal with it before it even gets across Highway 1?
If unfortunately the way the topography is that as you go north to south, it will vary your watershed. So yes, looking at areas, let's say, north of in the Beechwood area and east of Beechwood, yes, that you could have an impact by taking care of some of that you could have a positive impact on both Kehoe and Pilarcitos and Pullman. But it won't, it's not going to distribute down towards Seymour, for example. So there are going to be some overlaps, but they're not all going to overlap, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. It seems to me that if you can get, you can take a problem that will solve issues or minimize issues, whichever, at 2 or 3 ditches or water courses, then you're not duplicating efforts. And it just makes more sense. So,
Can I just piggyback for a second then? The word master plan sounds very desirable, doesn't it? Sounds proactive. Look at the whole picture. But there's challenges with master plan too. Often they're based on average rainfalls, statistics that no longer necessarily hold up, because now we're all of a sudden having the storms of the century every few years, and we don't know how that shifts waterways, and they're also expensive, right? I mean, we need grants, we need collaboration with probably the state, county to pay for those master plans, and
Certainly the improvements
that are going up way up in the hills. Those are no cheap, inexpensive fixes. So, so it sounds good, but again, it's a huge project, and we need that collaboration. So, what do you do in the meantime? We do have to address local things down near we are to prevent emergencies from, roads to implode because there's water going underground. We're in a situation because of unpredictable weather patterns like never seen before, and it's not going to get better, where I think we have to do both. Identify potential immediate emergencies to homes and public safety, and at the same time, get the partners we need to collaborate with looking at the bigger picture. You know what I mean? It's not one or the other. We kind of, unfortunately...
No, absolutely, absolutely. And I don't think, looking at a big master plan, a watershed master plan, is going to solve all the issues. But I do think that that's an approach that I'd like to have us look at. And yes, I mean, it's going to have to be grant money. It's not money the city has. So we're going to have to look to see if there is some way we can manage to do that while we're taking care of local issues.
So, can you educate me about the issue around the James Benjamin's property? What is it he's asking for?
So the Kehoe watercourse, given the types of soils and the flows that are going through, and especially some of the peak times, as well as some of the flows that are coming off of the streets themselves, Pilarcitos actually has an outfall next to Mr. Benjamin's house. There has been some eroding of the banks and some soil transport issues that have been happening. So it's not a flooding issue. It's a loss of soil and stability issue with respect to his property. So it's eroding away, and a lot of that is because of some of the peak flows, because of some of the changes that have happened over the years to the way that the water was conveyed, whether it was going through Pilarcitos or now Kehoe. And so it's a more complex concern. So one of the projects that we've had on this list for a little while is this Kehoe Watershed Enhancement project. That was really to look at the watershed for Kehoe, which touches Frenchman's and Pilarcitos in a way, and looks at utilizing some of our publicly available lands like the Beechwood property and possibly Glen Creek areas to retain some of that stormwater and reduce some of that burden on that ditch, on that water course.
But my impression is he's talking about more of a more discrete, specific project as opposed to that watershed planning, based on his lawsuit. And
there is an idea of looking at creating an outfall, so where you have Pilarcitos between Kehoe and Wave. So there's that stretch of Pilarcitos Road that's on the west end of the neighborhood. Patrick is familiar with that. And so there's state parks lands just west of those homes on the far west side. And so right now you have an outfall that goes down Pilarcitos into Kehoe Watercourse to the south. And then that water kind of snakes around the corner of Jimmy's property and ends up on State Beach property. Between, it kind of goes between the neighborhood and the sand plant and kind of flows towards the north. What Mr. Benjamin's talked about is actually creating a new outfall in another location further north of that point to alleviate the amount of water that's going into that portion of Kehoe Watercourse that then bends and goes around his house and the sand plant. So his idea has been to look at an outfall structure through in another location that currently does not exist. We've looked at there are some other pipes that we've actually found that were not identified in previous planning efforts. For example, there's one that's just south of Wave that we noticed that there's a little alleyway that folks can utilize to get to the coastal trail over in that location. And it was funny, we were kind of walking around and trying to figure out where some infrastructure was, and there was this it's a sanitary sewer manhole lid that we found. We just happened to come upon it because the neighbor had cleaned up some of their brush, and all of a sudden we have this manhole that's exposed. I'm like, there's no sewer over here. I know that. So we looked into it and we realized there seems to be an old storm drain system over there. So that's, that's one of the things that we're going to take a close look at. Now, dealing with that could help alleviate some of the issues in that corner. But yes, does it address the big picture issues with respect to how water is being conveyed from east of 1 towards the west? It doesn't go that far. And so, yeah, that's something we can certainly take a closer look at, and maybe that's part of the analysis for Kehoe Watercourse.
I think you need to address his issue in some fashion. I mean, it was part of a settlement agreement. It's been many years. I think you need to, knuckle down and look at a solution that works for he and his neighborhood there. I think it's just gone on too long. I think there's grant money, especially now with Prop 4, that would pay for rechanneling the Kehoe Watercourse out to the Caltrans mitigation site and a connected project there. I think you could probably also find funding for detention basin, at Beechwood. But I think in terms of prioritization, I think we need to be working on a solution that forestalls any further liability on the city's part for this situation we have with Jimmy Benjamin. But I kind of agree with both Deborah and Robert that in terms of stormwater and the various water courses, I think we need to look where the most legal liability and the most screaming is happening. I think we can, I think there's a team, a nonprofit team, looking at how to capture water, like at Seymour. It seems to me that Pullman and Kehoe, maybe Roosevelt, are a little more risky and have, more people, concerned. And I agree that it would be nice to do upper watershed stuff, but unfortunately, spending, especially grant money, ends up, fixing end of pipe issues first, because that's where people are living, right? That's grazing lands and, hills and mountains and stuff in the upper watershed. So I agree, it would be nice to do the capturing on the east side, but I think we need to reduce the potential for flood risk and liability. And maybe we need an engineer, consultant to look at prioritizing, based on risk, or identifying some small universe of projects that would alleviate the potential for liability with, these big storm events. But I think prioritization is something we have to do, and we can't do it all at once. But there is a fair amount of grant money between the Coastal Conservancy and Department of Fish and Game and State Water Board, to tackle some things. But in general, I think I want us to avoid getting into a situation with too much deferred maintenance of infrastructure. I mean, all you got to do is look at state parks. They have billions in deferred maintenance, and they're never going to get on top of that. Never, ever. It's always going to be a problem. Crappy access roads, crappy bathrooms, you name it. Because once it gets bad, it's just hard to recover. It gets more and more expensive. So I think we have to, do as much regular maintenance as we can to keep things from just coming unglued and requiring, reconstruction as opposed to patching. And we're a tourist community, and there's liability associated with deferred maintenance. We should be maintaining the trails. Heavy use, visitor serving. We should keep up our sidewalks. Any way we can reduce liability and maintain still, an attractive city for visitors that's safe, I think we need to do. I think we need to fund our sinking funds for equipment and vehicles. And I'm not in favor of, new projects, but I think we don't want to abandon projects that have started. Maybe we just reduce the level of effort. But, there's the Smithfield and other things we have going. Do what we can to sort of keep it going, take bites of it, and avoid starting, new initiatives that would cost a lot of money, unless we feel we have, are confident that we have a good project for grant funding, that's really outstanding. I'm in favor of maintenance and sinking funds and prioritizing water courses in terms of risk and liability, and just doing what we can. I understand the issues of staffing and capital expenditures. I know we have to manage it, but we can't put ourselves in a position where we are, smothered by deferred maintenance in the future. I think that's worse than spending some money, really. So I understand the safety priority, and I think you laid it out pretty well. That's just basically where I'm coming from at this point. So I don't have much else to offer there.
Do you have enough direction from us now?
I just asked the question before. Now I'd like to make a comment, though, if I could, through the mayor. I concur with everything's being set up here, and I'm familiar with capital projects, and when things go great, it's fun. When they don't go great, it's hard. And limited staffing. We have a couple of projects. In my short time here, we've had to fund extra money on. So I'm trying to get us to we bite what we can chew. I look on the horizon, we have that, I call it terror signal project, but it's the Highway 1 North safety, is that?
Correct.
Which, that's a big deal. Mm-hmm. And we need to be prepared for that. I mean, I remember getting ready for the Highway 92 project. It's similar. Plus, you got Caltrans running around going to be doing their project. Mm-hmm. So community is going to have to be well prepared, and we need to be ready for that. Some of these issues with safety, with storm drains, I agree. We have development already occurring. You have to fix it, make things work. But at the same time, maybe you don't have to put a 50-inch storm drain if you dealt with it upstream. So I get it, it's a balance. Yeah. But And I don't know where the grants come. Sometimes, oh, we can make a pond. Sometimes that's more favorable as opposed to, building more piping if you're able to spread it. I look at what's brought up about our maintaining our community. And a lot of these I was going through looked like were programs. And a lot of them said, not funded, not funded, not funded. To me, a lot of these could be an operating budget, maintaining your streets, maintaining signs. The sheriff, which Captain has left, sheriff won't enforce something if the signs aren't legible. So there's so many signs I know that, need, just sprucing it up. A lot of times I feel too, if you spruce up the public right away, it carries over into, private property. We all try to, do the right thing. So I'd like to see some of these programs become something part of our day-to-day operations, and you're looking for future, I'm going to have on there Kelly and One, the raised median pork chops. I know in concert with Redondo and Highway 1 there with the CLT project. And there's another extension of trail on the east side of 1. I think we've been getting close on that too. I think that's important. That connects with the county trail, right?
Correct.
So that's, to me, is if you're looking kind of the future, I look at that. But of course, I agree. Anything with safety is something we look at right away. And, I was looking at the thermoplastic crosswalks. They're already crumbling because of the material it had to be on. So it's getting back to, some of these streets, we're going to have to pave them.
They need love, absolutely.
Yeah, it's time. So I'd like us to spend more emphasis on what we're, maintaining in our community. Now, I know we talked about there's a water line trying to get down to Smithfield, because that potentially, once that happens, that could free up some another funding source. Right. And, maybe same thing with Magnolia. There's not necessarily a funding source, but something to try and get something started there. I think they talk about planters or some community gardens. I don't know. I mean, I'm just trying to think of ways without committing, into a lot of projects that we haven't finished or can't. But I'd like to see this trimmed down a little bit. It's a lot. It's a lot. Would you say 55?
Yeah, 55, which has always been, and that's been trimmed. I've trimmed that down from like 80 or something over the last couple of years because it's been more of a wish list than a reality as far as what we can deliver, unfortunately. Not because we don't have the enthusiasm, because just the amount of hours that's necessary to manage some of these projects.
Uh-huh. So the safety element had to be a CIP? Is that?
It didn't have to be. I think that was part of the conversation. I think from what I'm hearing today, it sounds like we're going to go and make this CIP a little bit more lean. Some of these things may come off the list. Some of them may be transitioned into an operating budget line item within the operating budget. I think that's what I'm hearing as far as some of the feedback I've received so
right,
far.
but you always have, we call them earmarks or markers. I mean, the 5-year program, you have stuff that, you put it out there. It's kind of a marker for future.
Right. So we may trim the list down as far as what budget requests we ask for next year, but things that we still want to position ourselves for grant funding, we'll keep on the list and we'll just show it as unfunded. That would be our approach.
Okay.
Speaking of that, grant funding, what are we doing? What does the city do in order to get grants? We don't have one person who's helping us with getting grants, right?
That's correct. We had hoped to get into that approach, but because of our financial situation, we've let some of those positions that had been kind of earmarked for that purpose remain open.
Yeah,
So
and what I'm thinking is, given our current economic situation, that we don't know, we have to assume is going to stay iffy for at least a few years.
Right.
Maybe we ought to be thinking about grants as a way to get some of the things that we need to get done. And so I'd like us to look at the idea of hiring somebody to be specifically writing grants. I don't know, it's a thought.
And just because we haven't had that dedicated person doesn't mean that Maz's team, Karen's team, within their realms are actively looking for grants and writing grants all the time.
I understand that. I get that. But they've got a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
And that, if that was taken off their palette, that might, I think it's worth discussing at any rate to see what a part-time grant writer could do to help all the departments in this city.
Yeah. I will share, you could have the greatest grant writer in the world. It does limit the amount of time that staff within the departments have to spend on them, but it doesn't eliminate it because the expertise still lies with them and the details still lie within those departments. So a grant writer would help us with management, tracking, follow-up, and kind of facilitating writing grants. But the expertise that is within the staff of those different departments still have to expend quite a bit of time with every grant application, sharing the details, sharing the history, sharing the technical specifics. So it's certainly, as we look at the structure of our city going forward, and right now is an opportune time because we've had some turnover and some vacancies. One of the important functions is grants, but I want to make it clear that that doesn't take as much of a load off of their plates as you would think. So
I'll just echo that. The applications that go through Public Works, I've reviewed, almost all of them I review at the end, at minimum, before they go out the door. And as Matthew mentioned, the staff does need to advocate for some of those specific data points that you try to hit on some of these grant applications. And even though we've got quite a bit of workload, we were successful in receiving 3 different grants for 3 different transportation-related projects just this last year. So, but yes, I also agree. And as we look at our structure, maybe there's a better way for us to structure ourselves to be in better position where you have staff dedicated to some of these efforts, and then that just frees up more time for me to do more quality control review, maybe not writing the grant itself.
That's my thinking.
Okay.
Appreciate that.
Hey, Maz, I have one last question. In the coastal trail, just south of the Marauder Bridge in front of the condos, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have those big orange barriers, right?
Right.
And we were talking about, wow, we're going to have to move that trail away from the water. Just a question. Another big storm, that thing looks like it's just going to fall right into the ocean. And won't that completely block the trail there? I mean,
It would, and I'm happy to report on that one that we actually have been working with state parks because that has been a concern for us. Some of the neighbors in that area have also brought that up as a concern. So state parks is working with the city. They've submitted an emergency CDP. They're going to go through the process of doing a realignment of that section.
Any thoughts about when that might happen?
They were hoping to get it started this month.
I spoke with their project manager on Monday, and they're supposed to start this week, actually. Right. And so what it'll do is it'll realign just south of that section that's been crumbling. It'll head east, and it'll catch kind of the parking on Marauder Road there. And then the section that has crumbled, and then between there and Marauder Road, it's actually on private property where we had an easement. That's going to be eliminated.
So you're pretty confident that before, let's say, the next winter storm season, it'll be in place?
We're pretty confident that before the summer crowds hit, it'll be in place.
I would like to end on that positive note then.
Can I add one thing? Yeah. I think just it's related and especially related to what we've heard from others about grants. The other thing that is really beneficial about this conversation tonight is this is the time of year when we're working with our federal and state representatives and Townsend, who we hire to advocate for us on earmarks. which have been very successful for us over the last several years. We've had a big focus on the parallel trails and received a lot of funding for those. We've gotten some housing funding at the time of need. We will use the feedback we've gotten tonight on prioritizing to work with them on, here's what is important to us, what resonates, and what in the current environment gives us most likelihood of getting funding, and puts forward some projects based on that. So the timing of this is great for that as well. I just appreciate this discussion for that purpose.
I just have a follow-up question. So what if, I'm thinking about the appeal to the California Supreme Court of the Casamira. So the Supreme Court might say, yeah, put riprap there to protect the trail. Might that have a bearing on what's going to happen? I mean,
I actually do have a sort of late-breaking update on that. The California Supreme Court recently declined to take the case. So that means that the Court of Appeal decision will stand. That's the decision that adopted the Coastal Commission's definition of existing structure. But it also found that the Coastal Commission's decision to deny the seawall was not supported by substantial evidence. So sort of split the baby, for a lack of a better term. I think it remains to be seen what next steps will happen, but I did want to just clarify that I just learned that actually today, that the Supreme Court denied that petition.
yeah, I mean, I think the state park should, proceed with a realignment, but I was just wondering if there's a decision pending that might impact that. So.
That would play into it, but there's some other factors related to the property owners in that area that have also affected the decision to reroute it anyways.
Yeah, and if I can add, the improvements they're doing under the emergency CDP is going to be a softscape trail that they're going to maintain. So they're going to use that emergency CDP to look for additional funding. So as things transpire, there will be more improvements by state parks, which we will be working closely with. And so if there's an opportunity to bring it back closer to the beach, we can talk about that.
So Matthew, can we get your daughter to do some grant writing for us?
Might be a conflict of interest, but I do have a daughter that's dabbling in that world and doing some pro bono work, so I'll have a conversation with the city attorney and see what she thinks. But generally, my children should not be employed by the city. It's a general rule of thumb.
All right, we're going to take a break, and we'll be back at 20 after 9. You know why this is here? It's to cover this freaking cable. So I gotta use some. No, I think that cable was there. It must be connected to this. Right? Anyway, we'll figure it out. Okay, we are ready to resume. We are up to resolution number D3D, the Half Moon Bay Sewer Collection System Maintenance Sewer Authority Mid-Coast. And we'll get a report. We have a recommendation before us to approve. So let's have Maz again. Thank you, Maz, for hanging in there tonight.
Thank you for putting up with me. Maz Buzerginia, Public Works Director, City Engineer. I'm here tonight to present the Sewer Authority collections budget. And the request tonight is for the City Council to authorize our City Manager to execute Amendment Number 8 for the collection system cleaning that is provided by SAM staff at a cost of $233,665 and extending the terms of the agreement for one additional year expiring at the end of the next fiscal year. A little bit of background, the city's Half Moon Bay collection system is smaller than the city's boundary itself. We have about approximately 35 miles of sanitary sewer mains that includes gravities and a few force mains. Everything south of Frenchman's Creek to Miramontes Point Road is the city's collection system. It also includes 3 pump stations, the Bell Moon, a very small pump station near Stone Pine Road and Main Street, and then there's the Pelican Point pump station and the Ocean Colony pump station. Over the last several years, we've been utilizing SAM's contract services for cleaning of our system. The way that it's set up, we've been doing 50% of our main lines annually with more frequency in some of our hotspots. Hotspots are areas around the downtown and other locations where you have a little bit more potential for fats, oils, and greases, things that would come up the system. So those are more routine. And this model has shifted. We used to do 100% cleaning about 6-7 years ago. And this balance of 50% with focus on hotspots seems to be working well. The contract also includes inspections and cleaning of our pump stations, responses to SSOs 24/7. They also mark our underground service alerts. So if anybody's coming to dig in the street and they call USA, SAM staff are, as part of this contract, will come mark it for us. And this has been a small increase. Last year, the budget was $212,000 and some change. The actual was over that amount, and so it's been kind of a fine tune. There's also some costs related to, salary, employee negotiations and salaries that have increased a little bit over time. So again, this one's pretty short and brief. The recommendation is before you tonight, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Can I ask to the mayor a quick question? So this is amendment number 8. At some point, when do you do a new agreement?
So that's a good question. I think it's probably a good time. We went through an RFP process, obviously, 7 years ago, and what the results that yielded from that was that the SAM collections cleaning is the most economic because of their location and everything. So I think, after this year, we can probably look at doing another request for proposals and starting a new agreement.
Right, and that we do contract because they're local. There's, you're not. How are you anybody going to compete with that, right? I mean,
exactly.
Yeah.
So we can go through the process, and the idea when we did this about 7 years ago was that maybe there's others out there that would be more economical, that would be able to do this for a lesser cost. And the reality is, because of this location, that really does give SAM staff the heads up.
And I'll also share, unlike some other agreements where you might have like a 5-year term, and if you had 8 amendments, that'd be concerning. In this case, because essentially each year they figure out what it's going to cost to provide the service, we just amended every single year so that that's full cost recovery for them as well. So it's a little different than a traditional vendor contract, but agree with Moz.
Yeah, and if I can add a little bit more. So this actually was something that around 2017, that's a very specific year for sewer system for, litigation purposes. So there was also a rationale behind trying to formalize this. In the past, we were doing collection cleaning with SAM without an RFP and amendments. It was just another pass-through contract like the O&M that's coming up after this. So the structure's changed a little bit.
I move that we adopt a resolution approving the FY 2025-26 Sewer Authority Mid-Coast Side Collections Budget and authorize the city manager to execute Amendment Number 8 to the Sewer Collection System Maintenance Professional Services Agreement with SAM.
Second.
Let's have a roll call, please.
Councilmember Johnson?
Yes.
Councilmember Nagengast?
Yes.
Councilmember Penrose?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ruddick?
Yes.
Mayor Brownstone?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Our next item on our agenda, our last item on our agenda, almost last item, is item 3E, Sewer Authority Mid-Coast Side Revised Fiscal Year 2025-26 Operations and Maintenance Budget. That's back to Maz.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. So this item is for the operations and maintenance of the wastewater treatment plant and related SAM assets. So the request tonight is to adopt a resolution approving that SAM operations and maintenance budget that is included as Exhibit A to the resolution without waiving its current and prior votes under protest related to capital improvements to the IPS, Integrated Pipeline System. A little bit more background, the SAM is a JPA that provides sewer treatment to the city, Granada Community Services District, and Montero Water and Sanitation District. Again, it's under that JPA of those 3-member agencies. The plant operates at an average dry daily weather flow of 4 million gallons per day. And over the last year, this 2024 calendar year, the percentage of flows have shifted a little bit. Half Moon Bay has dropped to 60.24. Montero Water is a little bit higher at 92%, and Granada Community Services is a little bit lower at 18.84%. That's important because the percentages of cost are allocated based on the flows to the plant for the operations and maintenance budget. The combined budget for SAM for operations and maintenance for all 3 districts has been increased to $9.9 million. The city's portion of that is an increase of 6.15%, and our current allocation for this year is 5.9, a little bit over, almost $6 million. And the overall SAM budget's increased 7%, and a lot of that has to do with some deferred maintenance costs that have come up, the replacement of the IPS system, the Montero Force Main, as well as some other costs for staffing. The capital expenditure is a pretty significant component of the operations and maintenance budget for SAM. They're calling it's a capital budget. They call it infrastructure, and it's kind of tucked into the general budget. But overall, it's the biggest cost that comes out of this infrastructure piece is the replacement of the Montero Force Main, which is part of the IPS system. The list of capital projects that was brought forward to the SAM board and to the city council earlier last year was a 5-year capital improvement program, which they called an infrastructure plan, but it's basically a capital improvement program. So for this particular year, it's a request of $3.645 million towards capital costs. And again, a majority of that cost is towards the Montero Force Main replacement project. This year alone is $3.51 million of the infrastructure of that anticipated $10 million cost. There's one more year. Next year, they're projecting for to ask for another $3.6 million overall for the Montero Force Main project. And then once they have the funding, that project would be to replace that section of a significant section of pipe would take a couple of years to do. There's 2 other components of the capital request for this budget. There is a small ask for $100,000 for the installation of one of the boilers for the incinerator. The boiler, one of them is in the process of being replaced. The other one's been ordered. There was a funding shortage with the installation. That's what the request is for the $100,000. It's the support for the installation of that critical piece of equipment at the plant. And then there's also one vehicle replacement at $35,000. They have one small pickup truck that is becoming very costly to maintain and repair. So that's the other ask. Again, the significant majority of the request for capital costs is tied to the Montero Force Main replacement project. I just wanted to highlight some next steps. So as we move forward, there's been a focus on the 2022-2023 winter storms. This has come up at different SAM meetings, and it's also been a topic of discussion amongst the SAM general managers. And the picture on the right is just a snapshot of something that was shared with staff with respect to looking at some potential wet weather storage. SAM and some of the other agencies is really focused on wet weather storage needs because of some of the concerns with the amount of water that was making it to the sewer plant during those large events in 22-23. And part of the conversation has been that, we all, given our general location, there is a high potential for I&I. Just because of where we live and where all these pipes are. And so although the need and demand for wet weather storage might be there, the location is going to be very critical. And I'm sharing the snapshot of this picture from the document that Sam has shared that we will continue looking at. Is one of the ideas was, let's put it close to the sand plant. If that's where the issue is, let's put it close to the sand plant, and we can try to capture it there and not worry about how where it's coming from. I mean, on the surface of it, that makes a lot of sense. But when you take a closer look at the area specifically, you're talking about some pretty sensitive locations. You're talking about an area that could be inundated by floodwaters from Pillars Creek. Actually, in 22-23, the creek did overtop and it did flood the plant. And so that might not be the best location for this infrastructure. Again, wet weather storage, it could be necessary in different areas to support the SAM's operations and not inundate the sand plant itself. Does it change the cost to treat this? No, because again, if you have wet weather storage, that wastewater is being contained and ultimately still has to be cleaned. So you're not reducing overall costs. So you're really just kind of holding it, and essentially you're not having spills. So you're doing the sustainable thing from an environmental perspective. But again, it doesn't reduce the costs. So you still, even though adding the wet weather is beneficial, you still have to take care of your pipe issues. If you have inflow and infiltration, if you have direct connections from people's crawl spaces into their cleanouts, things like that need to be addressed regardless of wet weather storage needs or not. And so with that, the city's been working on a collection system hydraulic model. It was recently updated and completed, and we're fine-tuning that document. May 6th is another big one. You'll see me a lot on May 6th. So we'll be presenting. The goal is to present our hydraulic model of our collection system to the city council, and ultimately we're going to present that to the SAM board as well, because I think that piece of information is really helpful for everybody to understand some of the flows, but some of the limitations that we have as far as getting our wastewater to the plant. We talked about the Montero Force Main and the IPS. That's a pressurized system that ultimately does feed into a gravity line that goes up Bev Cunha Road. The city does not have any direct force mains into the sewer plant. So there is a limitation for the amount of water that can be conveyed based on the slope and the size of your pipe. And even if you have a lot of wastewater coming through with a lot of I&I, there are very limiting factors in how much water can actually get through some of those pipes to make it into the sand plant. So that's what the hydraulic model will help provide a little bit more information on. And we also want to provide that data to our sister agencies so that they can understand what our system is doing. And what I'm going to ask is that at SAM and our sister agencies also do the same thing. From my understanding is that they do not have a hydraulic model on the rest of the system. And I think that's really important to have that piece of information to really understand what's happening here. Because we all know there's a lot of water that's being treated and being discharged from the plant. Where it's coming from, how it's getting into the system, whether we have I&I issues at the plant itself or different segments of pipe, that's really important to understand. And before we move forward with an expensive and challenging project, putting anything this close to Pillars Creek would be very challenging as far as an environmental and coastal development permit standpoint. So we really need to be very focused there.
And wouldn't you need to mitigate the impacts of that project?
Absolutely. So it's not just the cost of the project. As thank you, Vice Mayor Ruddick. It would also be the cost of replanting wetlands in other locations. And so we have a 4-to-1 mitigation requirement. So it is expensive. And so maybe this is a good place for it. I don't think we have enough information to know that for sure. So with the May 6th meeting, I think there'll be a little bit more information that we'll be able to present to the City Council. We'll ultimately present that to the SAM board. And again, we're hopeful that will start some conversations about looking at our system on a larger scale and really understanding where those issues are so we can address them. So again, I'm going to restate the recommendation. This is a little bit of a change. We've talked a little bit about the wet weather flows and some of the distributions. The way that the flows are calculated, you have some metered systems coming from those pressurized systems. And then you have a gauge that tells you how much water is actually being treated and discharged from the plant itself. those values are subtracted, and that's where you get that 60% that you saw for the city's flows. And I think with the hydraulic model and some of the thoughts and concerns that we have with how this is being structured, there may be some concerns with the way that some of those meters are being, how those flows are being distributed. And so we've added one statement here to this recommendation that we're going to, that I would recommend, if that's something we want to consider, that we add that to this recommendation, which is that not only are the city council protests costs related to the capital improvements reflected in the IPS, but also reflects the city's ongoing concerns with discrepancies in SAM's methodology for calculating flow distribution, which would materially impact cost allocations.
Absolutely. And city attorney, have you looked at adding that in there?
Yes, I worked with Moz on this added language.
Great. Because, and I'll bring this up again, I looked at the 10-year flow historical data. We were at 50% in 50% of the total flow in 2015, and now we're at 60 or 61. And magically, we gained 10%. How's that happen? So I think adding this additional language.
One of the other agencies' arguments against this has been that we're not taking care of our infiltration and inflow, and that we're not accounting for that. And that's probably why it's 60%, is that, we're putting a lot more in it than our hydraulic capacity. It's like, it's I&I. So I think that's been their sort of argument, like at meetings and things. You got to take care of your I&I. But
the hydraulic flow study's going
Well, we'll take care of ours, absolutely, but maybe the sand plant should take care of theirs. I mean, I think there could be some other possibilities where this additional I&I is located and not so, because right now it's very simple. You subtract out total, you subtract Montero and Granada from total, well, the remainder has to be HMB. So and maybe, but this is what we do. You discount or you take out what it isn't. And it starts giving you down paths where you can now, okay, we can focus on this. So, great. I agree with the added language.
That's it for the presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions. Oops, sorry.
Put the
I will right now.
the recommendation up there again. Yeah, I'm happy to make a motion. Yeah. Could we see the recommendation again on the screen?
Is it not coming up?
Not for me. There we go. Okay.
I got it here. Is that the same?
It doesn't have the new language in it, though.
It's in the other.
Yeah.
It's coming.
I move that we, I move that we adopt a resolution approving the Sewer Authority Mid-Coast revised operations and maintenance general budget for fiscal year 25-26, included as Exhibit A to the resolution, without waiving its current and prior votes under protest related to the capital improvements to the integrated pipeline system. This protest also reflects the city's ongoing concerns with discrepancies in SAM's methodology for calculating flow distribution, which materially impact cost allocations.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Johnson?
Yes.
Councilmember Nagengast?
Yes.
Councilmember Penrose?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Reddick?
Yes.
Mayor Brownstone?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. Any committee updates? Commission committee updates?
None tonight.
None
Mr.
tonight.
Mayor.
Future discussion possible agenda items. I have one. Before I forget. I'd like to agendize, I know we've had a program to start putting cameras up, right, to look at license plates, et cetera. So I was thinking maybe we can add in, we might be able to get some of the money still from, what's it called, the police funding?
The COPS grant?
Yeah, COPS grant. Maybe this just goes back to our beach issue earlier. Maybe have pilot a couple of cameras at some of the hot spots. Maybe Poplar, Redondo Beach, because maybe that would reduce the number of sheriffs we need during really busy times. If we have a couple of cameras to monitor what's going on in those areas, and if there's activity, you don't have to have as many sheriffs there all the time if someone's monitoring, and let's just see if that can reduce their workload and help out. Does that seem like a good idea to pilot something like that?
Can I bring something forward that Hal Bogner brought to me, and I don't know if it's true or not, but it's one of his ideas that he's worried about these cameras being used and it's going into ICE and ICE is using it for that. I don't know if this is true or not, but
It's come up before, and
not against it. I'm just
yeah. It actually no. It's come up, and we actually benchmark with other cities who are diligent, very progressive. Palo Alto, they brought in ACLU also, and their consensus. All those cities passed, laws to allow for those cameras based on what input from ACLU, et cetera. So I'm pretty confident that if those particular cities thought it was okay, and that, working with the Sheriff's Department, that information is not shared at all, that it's okay. But we put a lot of energy into checking that out. Does that, remember that?
get that from writing from sheriffs so that people can feel.
I think we already did before, yeah. We have
It's in the policies already.
Yeah. But thanks for bringing it up again, because it was a few months ago, so.
Aren't we already going to do cameras at Poplar and Redondo Beach Road?
Well, so there's the ALPR, which is focused, it only looks at the license plates. What I'm hearing is, in addition to the ALPR, some actual surveillance cameras. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah. And they maybe only be operational in the summer or whatever, As a pilot, try it for a couple of months, see if it reduces the need for extra sheriffs and acts as a mitigation for that activity if people know that we're checking it out. Any thoughts?
I don't like the idea, just because of the ICE issue right now.
Okay, that's fine.
Fear around it, that's all.
Well, what's the rest of y'all think?
I think right now, if we put more cameras, and Councilmember Penrose, I kind of agree that it just adds this, like they're watching us, and you got people that are nervous right now, and I hear what you're saying. I agree, but right now is not a right time to do it. It's people are on they're on nerves right now, and we've heard it. We've actually heard people when we have these workshops.
Right.
They're
I'm very sensitive to that. So if that's what you're hearing, that works.
I think as long as we're just looking at license plates, I'm good with it. But if we're having general sort of, surveillance, I don't like it. Yeah.
License plate cameras might make a difference. You good with that? I just don't know if that
the pilot program includes the ALPR
great
units in those areas. Yeah.
I should have asked that first. Okay, great. Thanks.
The beautification committee, weren't we going to be getting a report out from them on their budget and expenditures? We talked about that.
It's a condition for giving them money last year.
Oh, so it wasn't a report out, it was allowing staff to look at the books to ensure that, yeah.
I'd like to get a report from staff.
Sure.
But somebody, I'd like to know.
Sure, that was 2 years ago. That wasn't recent, yeah. It really does, it really does.
I'm working with them right now. I kind of got myself involved because I really wanted to see those baskets on Main Street again and get ready for the events that are happening this month coming up. And I talked to Naomi, I talked to Susie, I got to know who to talk to, and then I got Joe Cutchett wants to donate $4,000. I'm going to donate probably $1,000 for those baskets, but they cost $20,000. I found out a source where to buy the baskets straight from the source for like $31, but then you have to plant them and all this, put the plants in, and then they have to mature for 6 weeks. So we're not going to be able to meet this deadline that I'm trying to do like next month. But they're having a meeting Wednesday or tomorrow, and I can't do it because I have another meeting to go to. So I'm waiting for that meeting, and then I want to hear what they have to say, because I think we should really try to get these plants and try to spruce up Main Street like we've talked about. So I'm trying to push them a little bit, but I was told to kind of back down because I'm, stepping on their toes. But I would like to see that. I mean, honestly, but it's the expenditures to water these. There's a guy, Sean, who goes around 3 times a week to water and nurture these plants and cut them and get them ready, or just maintain them. So there's a lot of costs that I didn't even think about. So that's one of the things I'm learning. But I'm trying to help them as much as I can.
I think that's nice. I'd like to know what they spend their money on, how much money they get from the pumpkin festival. I'd like to know that.
So I noticed that they're going to be part of Coastside Gives this year. Does the Mavericks Foundation require people, nonprofits who are part of it, to show their 1090s or any kind of accountability like that?
I'm not sure what the vetting process is for Coastside Gives. I mean, I'm sure they vet to ensure that they're actual legitimate 501c3 nonprofits, or I know there's different statuses, but nonprofits. Beyond that, I don't know.
So where do we stand? Is that even a city committee? The beautification committee, isn't that? We don't have any.
That's a nonprofit. But I think what this goes back to is several years ago, we were asked to make a donation or a sponsorship towards the Pumpkin Festival. And a condition of that the council put on it was that staff would have a chance to look at their books to ensure, just there's some transparency there, and that happened. Again, that was several years ago.
For the first time ever.
So we don't have a report, is that right? Never.
I don't think there was a condition that we were going to publicly have a discussion about their books. Nor do, again, that was several years ago. So I think there would have to be a different arrangement made before a discussion like that can happen. Yeah. We'd have to entice them to, and I'm not sure what nonprofit would want an open discussion about their funding sources in a city council meeting. So.
Okay.
Let's just not give them any more money.
Okay, well, nothing's coming up asking for more money, right? They're not asking for more money, are they?
We haven't provided sponsorship to them since.
Okay.
I have a couple.
Yeah, Paul, a couple what?
Yeah, I have a couple. I mean, but things that have come up, I don't know if we still are interested in meeting with school district board members. We used to do a thing 2-on-2. We used to, I know 20 years ago, we used to do something too, but maybe quarterly or, biannually or something, maybe just to touch base with each other. I know they've expressed some interest if we could partner, maybe open up the playgrounds on the weekends. Maybe the city, the way they do things now, they had to put full gates and secure their playgrounds over the weekends. And I've heard, there's the city community would like maybe to use that on the weekends. And I didn't know, and there's going to be a talk about a pool. There's all kinds of things, maybe just to have a connection with each group. So I don't know if we'd be interested in.
Well, so we already have someone who meets with the schools, right? that's one of our representatives.
No, we
from
have
council.
one that
Yeah,
does
there's
that?
someone from council.
Well, so we were doing 2x2s, which was 2 council members, 2 board members, and staff. Those ended during the pandemic. We pushed for them essentially since then. Not hard, but we've pressed on it. I think the issue has been the constant turnover that they've had. I met with the interim superintendent, and I know they're in the process of hopefully getting to a permanent superintendent shortly. But when I met with him, when he came on board, I expressed that desire. He was open to it, but said they've got to kind of settle things out before they do it. So I think there's an appetite for it. There's a purpose for it. We do provide some of that weekend access to their facilities. We would love to expand that. And the 2x2s is kind of where those discussions would happen.
All right, so
I think what we're waiting for is them to settle some things out with their leadership, and then they'll coordinate with us. But they know we want to do this.
So let's put that on the radar screen for when we get a superintendent and they've settled in for a month or two, and then bring it up as a item again.
And then I know.
I'll second that. Just
well,
when we get
thank
it.
you. That's what we get. Okay.
And the new gentleman who was elected is committed to resuming those things, he told me, so.
Great.
Oh, one of the new board members. Yeah. And then I know we heard, I think it's coming back to us, the Gateway project. It might be coming back to council as part of a capital or priority. But I'm just thinking, right, it's coming back to us?
This is the Main Street and 92 Gateway, yes.
Yeah.
I believe we're going to bring it back at the next meeting.
So I'm thinking in the interim, or because I spent a lot, well, there was a big chunk of the city's 92 project put up those banner poles just north of the Main Street Bridge. If there's a possibility to have the ability to either, if there's some type of netting banner or just like a flag type banner on each pole, a way to come up with a policy that somebody could put an event up there or have something just to get use those again. I don't think I've ever seen I haven't seen those used in a while. Again, you may not be able to put something all the way across, but they probably have some weird netting type things that wind can go through. But I was just thinking each pole could have something like those, I call them flags, but they're different types of things. So there could be a policy to how business or events could put a flag on there.
Does that need to be an agendized item, or we could see what's possible first? Or?
You know, what I can do is incorporate that into the priorities discussion, because that a policy takes staff time, bandwidth, and effort, outreach. So I think, is that okay if we just include it as part of the priorities?
Yes, I just wanted us to,
it's a good idea,
to talk about it again. And then along with that, is there something, you're speaking of the downtown, I'm learning there's, 3 or 4 organizations part of downtown, or maybe at least 2, and then I count, city. Where I'm going with this, could we maybe have maybe the city could be the lead on this, some type of roundtable to understand, so the businesses, because there was a listening session we had with the business community and heard a lot of good things from that, and I thought the business community was appreciative that somebody was listening to them. Obviously, we can't do everything, but just to understand that they didn't even know what city staff does there, just as a general question. And I heard tonight the beautification committee has an interest there. I don't know if the Downtown Association does anything, but just to understand who does what. And maybe it's just 2 groups that operate on the streets there. So is that just the beautification committee and city? Are we clear who does what? Because there's also, there's something else about the ability to attach flags to the streetlight poles.
Yeah, thank you.
Right? So that's something else.
I added that to my note for priority setting around it's all related.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right.
That got brought up when I had meetings with Betsy, with those 2 poles. When you look at the Main Street poles, there's 2 poles that come out. It'd be nice to have like seasonal for events or what's happening. And they're there, but there's no flags. And then we should be saving them for if we have events that are always, every year the same one, just somebody stores them, we put them back up and put them as long as they're lasting. But there's no flags, so that was one of the things we brought up.
So, sounds like a lot of us have an interest in the Downtown Business Association. I frankly always am wondering how they determine who's speaking for whom, and I don't understand their process. And there's certain things I hear, well, the Downtown Business Association doesn't want X, Y, Z, but without having a little more understanding of their decision-making process and how they represent everyone, then it's hard for me to really get a sense. Well, anyway, I just want to know, who do we speak to if we do have some questions about certain events and why they say, no, this event decreases business if you put it downtown, if we shut off streets? Because sometimes I hear these things and I'm saying, does that make sense? Or, so I'd rather know there's people we can definitely speak to. So
A battle between the Chamber and the Downtown Merchants Association. Get out your gloves.
Yeah, no, hey, I'm ready to hear it all. I just want to make sure that we just need some more trust to know that we're working together as one and not having conflicts about who represents whom.
When somebody calls you up and wants to meet, like, well, who are you representing? Are you representing yourself, your own business? Are you representing the...
Yeah, so let's make sure we got that straight.
So your priorities, are you going to have in there who does what? Is that part of what you're going to submit as far as
No, this was more just about, is this an item you want staff to put time and energy into this year? The banner polls and those types of things. Let me think about the question about who does what and how we can address that.
Because I think it would help the downtown, not everybody's a member of one or the other organizations down there. And it's interesting how things do or don't happen.
On that note, remember the sign Betsy was talking about getting for the wine and cheese, and then I texted you, and she says it's still not there. The merchants she didn't see it.
It's at Back Dutra.
Is it?
It's there. It's been there. So.
But that's like who does what. That's exactly what we're talking about.
We're all in agreement. We need to.
Not to be a wet blanket, but we also have to consider union-related issues too when it comes to that.
Right.
So just keep that in mind.
Good point. All right, everybody.
That's a good question.
This council meeting's adjourned.
I do. I agree with you.